All right. Hello, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me again for Telehealth Tuesday. That I'm really excited to share. I think that this will be something that is helpful here in the group to answer like really specific and timely questions about what you guys are working on right now, what I'm working on right now with my own practice and with my coaching clients. My hair is so distracting. It just sticks up. But anyway, so I'm really excited to talk tonight. We had some more submissions on different things that you guys are wondering about. And, I see that a couple of you guys are here with me. So if you can hear me, see me okay, just drop a thumbs up or hello in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me here live. And if you guys are catching me on the replay, comment replay. So thank you so much for being here. And we will jump right into it. So today's topic that we have comes from Lindsay. This was one of the submissions that I got in the last week. If you guys do have questions, check the description and there's a link for where to submit your own questions to get answered on Telehealth Tuesday Live. And we'll talk about that more at the end. But tonight's topic is how do you set your rate for cash services from Lindsay? And I think this is a great question. And I think it's something that all of us like kind of go through at one time or another, just kind of wondering like, how do I even like value the services that I have, and I think some of it comes from a place of like, kind of being like the operator in a business at a traditional clinic or in a traditional setting and not necessarily like knowing how much you're actually billing and charging for all the services and what's getting reimbursed and what's not, and how much the patient ends up owing. And so when we go out on our own and we do it ourselves, especially if it is like for cash and it's just like really simple. That's why I really like having a cash-based practice is because it's very simple and straightforward for everybody involved. But when we go out on our own, we have like almost like no tangible concept of how much to start charging. And you can always look for, the reimbursement rates near where you are to give you kind of a guess. But, you may or may not know the exact rates near you for what people are charging. And so like, that's something that I do want to go over tonight, based on things that I know, what people are charging for different things, and just a few suggestions that I have on this topic to help you guys if this is something that you are also wondering about. And if you do have any questions as I'm going through this and like the different suggestions I have, please drop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer other questions related to this topic towards the end as well. So the first thing that I usually suggest for like what you should set your rate as, whether you're charging per session, per hour, that's where I usually like to start people at because I think it makes sense. Like it's kind of like tangible to grasp onto, how much do I charge per session or how much do I charge per hour? And you can just start there. So that's the first thing. How much are you going to charge per hour? How much are you going to charge per session? Whichever way you want to go. And then as far as the price goes, I like to say that it should be somewhere between I am super comfortable asking for this amount. I have no problem doing that. And like almost making you want to throw up because you're so nervous to ask for that much money. And it'll be somewhere in between. Kind of just under the line of it being like a little bit too nerve-wracking to ask for that. Specific pricing wise, I do know that most physical therapists and OTs are charging somewhere between $100 and $250 per session. And I know that's a huge range, so like, I know most people end up starting somewhere between like $100 and $150. And then it's totally okay for you to slowly raise that over time if you feel like it would be a good decision for you and your business. And there are a few different factors to consider with that. But you can definitely start with something that's on the lower end, so that like you do feel comfortable, maybe like a little tiny bit nervous about asking for that amount of money and making that sale. But, if you could go out there tomorrow and sell sessions, no problem, for $125 each, maybe a couple months from now, then you can consider raising your price to $150, $175, and maybe later this year, somewhere near the $200 range. And that's totally up to you. You also don't have to raise your price. It really just depends on, like what you want to do with your business, what you feel like your time is worth, what you feel like your, knowledge and education is worth, and like the value. Ultimately, we need to be charging for the value of the services and the results that we're getting clients. So, like I said, I would recommend starting with charging like per session, and like that gives you something to hold on to. And like I said, it's a little bit more tangible, but eventually we want to get to a place where we're charging based on the results that, that you can help people get, because like we're in the business of like helping people make huge improvements to their lives, and that's something that I really want you guys to know, when you're trying to judge the value of what it is that you're offering. You make huge impacts on people's lives, and that's really valuable. And so it's totally okay to ask for money for the services that you provided. But I hope that helps. So that's kind of like how I would suggest setting the price right away. And I do get asked questions about whether like you should charge like more or less for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour session, hour and a half. That again is going to be totally up to you. I can tell you what I do is, I just book sessions typically for an hour, and then my telehealth sessions, those are for in person. And then my telehealth sessions are like the evaluation will usually be an hour, and then the follow-ups are usually a half hour. So I just cut the price in half for the follow-ups. And that's what I do because I think it's really simple and it's pretty easy. So if it's like $150 for the eval, then it'll be $75 for each additional follow-up. And then I wrap it all up into a package. And that is the next topic that I did want to cover. And for you guys who are here with me live, or if you're catching on the replay, do you guys have any questions on like the price of a session? And we'll kind of get into a couple of other things about like packaging things up and selling them. But just drop a comment below and let me know if you do have any questions on that. So then moving into the next topic of like, how do I sell, all of the sessions? Do I sell them one at a time? Do I sell them as like a package of sessions? Do I sell monthly memberships? How do I go about doing that? And so I, for a really long time, have been a fan of the middle option of selling packages. And I will tell you why. When I started my practice, I started originally doing session to session. And, this was probably a little bit of a mix of like my own personal sales skills and a mix of, the patient population I was working with, which was CrossFitters, very like DIY athletes and everything. But I found that when I was selling sessions one at a time, I felt like I was living, instead of paycheck to paycheck, I was living session to session, and that's stressful for me. I also found that I had more drop-offs. So I would have people come for 1 or 2 sessions, and then the third one, it would just get canceled and rescheduled a bunch, and then we would just end up not doing it. And so I felt like I was doing a disservice to my patients because we weren't like going through the entire plan of care. We had just gotten started, and we didn't have like enough time to really like make any progress. And like ultimately that's what we all want, is for our patients to get results and, make improvements to their lives, and decrease their pain and improve like their everyday activities. And I just felt like going session to session like that, it wasn't serving my business or me, and it wasn't serving my patients. And so I found that by starting to package things and selling them in sessions of 4, 6, 8, and 12, and I've sold the different ones at different times. Usually now I sell packages of 6 at a time. But when like I was able to offer and sell a package of 6 sessions to a patient, then, like I was showing my commitment that like, hey, like here's the best plan. This is what I recommend as your medical health professional here. And this is what it's going to take to make progress towards your goals. And I will be here for you every single step of the way, all 6 sessions or whatever it is. And I would love to invite you, to accept this invitation to work together, and invite you to also commit to this plan of care, and together we'll work towards your goals. And so like, to me, it felt like it was a little bit more of like a teamwork situation. I was committed, the patient's committed, the patient is bought in. And then that way we also, when we had to reschedule appointments, it wasn't like living like session to session anymore. Like I had either taken the payment all up front, or I had taken it on a monthly payment plan, and I knew I was going to get paid. So, I had no problem rescheduling things and moving things around. So that's why I am team packages. I am also really interested right now in helping therapists set up like monthly membership options, or like wellness programming options, things that are a little bit longer term. And so I'm going to be doing a little bit more research into that, because it seems to be something that is becoming a little bit more popular, and our patients are interested in that kind of service, and that kind of like payment scheme and setup, so to speak. So that's something that you guys will definitely see some more information about. But I know that there are like mobile therapists out there who charge per month for a certain number of sessions per month. And it's basically like, if you don't use them, you lose them. And it's just month to month to month. And then there are also like a couple of the therapists that I work with do online like exercise programming and work with people month to month that way. And there is also another therapist I work with who's doing a like monthly wellness program. And that could be another way that you charge people. As far as single sessions go, I talked to somebody a couple weeks ago, Liz, who owns her own practice, and she only charges session to session, which I thought was super interesting. And what she said was the biggest thing about doing that is that you just have to be really on top of your game as far as sales skills go. And what that really translates to is being able to communicate what the plan is, what the expectations are, and the value that you're going to be able to provide by working together. And so like, if you guys are interested in that and selling session to session, just let me know in the comments below, and I'll tag Liz and have her share some of her wisdom with us. So my suggestion is packages, but obviously do whatever is going to be the most comfortable for you. And then I just had a question here. Where do we find the list of fees per different interventions? And so I think you were talking about like the CPT codes and what is being billed per CPT code. And I can show that to you guys here in a second. Just give me 1 second to pull it up. But so this is going to be like a different thing. If you're planning on billing out of network, billing in network, and creating super bills, finding like what you're charging for each CPT code, this is what that's going to be relevant to. If you were just strictly charging cash like I do for 99% of my patients, you don't need to base like what you're charging on the average reimbursement of CPT codes. It can be whatever you want to charge. So don't feel like you have to like fit into the box of that. But where you can go on a website called Fair Health Consumer. Sorry, wasn't planning on pulling this up, but I will share my screen. So I got this information from one of my very best friends, Allie Marty. And she shared this with me because I wasn't really sure like where to find like the stuff to make a fee schedule and CPT codes either. So she shared this website with me. It's called Fair Health Consumer, and you can go to medical and hospital costs, either in network or out of network, just figuring out, you know, which one you want information on, clicking next. That's where I am. And then, so there are some telehealth costs, which is interesting, but we might enter a CP code or CPT code, like physical therapy evaluation. And then the CPT code will pop up here, and then get your cost. And so this is going to be like the average amount in my zip code. So this is not like the actual like cost of everything all over the place, but this is just the average price for the CPT code in my zip code. So the average cost of out of network is $288, and the average cost of in network is $122. So, you know, you can already see, like, if I'm charging anywhere in between those two numbers, it's perfectly reasonable as far as insurance goes. But that's just, this is where you can find information on the different CPT codes for where you live. So I hope that that helps. And then another question here. My one true love is strength coaching. Hey, I love strength coaching too. And I would like to continue seeing clients in addition to patients. Do you have any suggestions on payment structure, same cost or different? Great question. That question comes up a lot as well. And what I recommend, because I like to try to keep things as simple as possible across all aspects of life, but especially when it comes to pricing in your business, is I just keep it the same. So whether like I'm doing strength coaching, wellness coaching, or physical therapy, it's the same cost, you know, especially because I just charge essentially per hour or per session. And so my time is my time. You know, I'm still providing a really valuable service. One isn't necessarily better than the other. And the client is still going to get, you know, really good results and work towards their goals and their outcomes. So I would recommend keeping all of the prices the same. I think that'll be easier. And then like something that we might be able to talk about in the future is, you know, putting together like programs, like structured programs to take clients through that are a little bit more wellness based and how to do that. So if that's something that you're interested in how to create a structured program versus doing, you know, like clinical care, kind of like traditional therapy, just comment below and let me know, and we can talk about how to create like a 3-month structured program and how to price it and what to include. So I hope that that helps. But I, like with my strength clients and my wellness clients, I do the same like structure of things. And I actually like to give you an example. In January, I had a patient sign up for 8 sessions. And he paid for everything all up front, and we're just like booking session to session now. And we were able to stretch them out a little bit because he didn't need all of them right up front. And so I sold him 8 sessions all at one time. And then I actually, my wellness coaching client that I have, she's paying me on a monthly basis. So it's a little bit more like a membership. So those are just a couple of suggestions with that. And let me know like what you're considering too. And I'm happy to give you some feedback as well. And then question here, do you find that your cash-based patients want to take the receipt and try to send that in for insurance reimbursements? I have had one person, you know, in the past year and a half specifically ask me for that receipt and that super bill, and actually submit it to their insurance. I've had 2 other people say that they were like interested, but then neither of us ended up really like diving too much more into that conversation, and they were perfectly fine just to pay cash. So I find that for the most part, like people don't really want to deal with their insurance company. That's been my experience. And, like I talked about with Anthony Maritato last week, I will be the first to admit that I am not like super educated on insurance, so if you are, and that is something that you know about and you're going to educate yourself further so that you can offer that and explain the insurance reimbursement policies to your patients, that's awesome, and you can definitely start to include the receipts with all of your sessions. I do know some people just make them automatically and give them out per session. And then there are other therapists who will just, keep track of the super bills and keep them every session, but then like email or mail or give them to their patients once a month so that they do have them. So in my practice, I have not seen much interest at all in the super bills, but it could be something for you in the future. And a question here, do patients ever seem reluctant to buy packages versus paying for individual visits as they are paying more upfront? Also, do you offer any incentive with packages such as a percentage discount when they buy a package? Yep. So what I do is I'll say, if it's $150 a session for 8 sessions, math is not my strong suit, guys. So yeah, that's what I sold actually. So $150 per session for 8 sessions. And then I told my client on his evaluation, like I typically sell these in packages. And so what I can do for you today is if you do pay all up front, then I can offer you, let me see, 1,200. I can offer you a 10% discount, and that would be $1,080 for all 8 sessions up front. And so it ends up being, a little bit of a session discount for each session if you pay all up front. And so that's what he chose to do. So some people really like discounts and they like that like long term, they'll be paying less. So some people are into that. And then another patient that I had, I was going to charge her $800 and she did not want to pay all of that up front. And so we split it into 2 monthly payments. And so that's what I typically do is say, like it'll be this much for all the sessions. And what I can do for you is either offer you a discount if you pay all up front today, or we can split the total up into monthly payments so that it's a little bit easier. There are some people who would just rather pay session to session. I haven't had many of those, maybe like less than a handful. Because most of the time, if you provide the direction and say like, look, like this is my policy, this is how it works, I really think that I can help you and get you to where you want to go. And you lay out the options like A or B for pricing and payment structure, then the person that you are speaking with will pick and just pick one of the options. And if they're still kind of like unsure, you can always have a discussion with them about making it work for them. And then a question here, do you have lower price options for low income clients? Not a lot of good PT options for people on state insurance in my area. So like, good question. I personally can't speak to that. I don't offer lower prices for different clients, but I do know one thing. I talked about this with a couple people recently. One thing that I've seen specifically with mental health therapists is that they'll have a sliding scale. So there might be like an annual household income like cutoff, and then they'll have a sliding scale below that, just doing some math and some percentages about like how much is your household income, and then like this is the cost that you'll pay. So you could always do a sliding scale. So it's based on something, and you're not just like making up prices, which brings me to my last point that I wanted to talk about. Thank you guys so much for hanging in here with me. I didn't realize this topic was going to turn into so much information, but the one thing that I want you to take away from tonight is that you need to set your prices, write them down, and print out that piece of paper, like have it set in stone. Like this is the price and we're not going to like argue with it. These are my pricing policies. This is the way that it works. And move forward from there. You can always go back, a month or 2 or 6 later and change the prices. You're free to do that. But one mistake that I have definitely made and that I've fallen into is that, like, by not writing down my prices, it made it really easy for, me to like change my prices like day to day, depending on the patient and like what they're dealing with, how confident I'm feeling that day. And then things are just kind of like all over the place. So for the sake of organization, for the sake of cash flow in your business, write your prices down. You can always change them later on, but write them down, have it, essentially set in stone. And it is what it is. It's really, I would just suggest having that so that you can't argue with yourself about what your prices are. And it won't vary day to day just based on how you're feeling or anything like that. So thank you so much. I'll hang out for just a minute here. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments there, but thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that this was helpful. Like I said, definitely check the link in the description. There's a jot form link that you can fill out to submit your own questions for Telehealth Tuesday. And I'll try to get to as many of them as I can, because I want this to be, really relevant, timely information to help you guys out. And then like the last thing too, I am coming up in the next week or so. I'm going to be accepting applications for the March start date, March cohort of Telehealth Business Academy. So if you are somebody who's looking for guidance and direction and you just want to know exactly what to do to build your practice, definitely let me know. And the link to my website to book a consult with me is up there too in the description. So thank you so much for hanging out tonight. Thanks so much for the last tip, as I'm guilty of this. Me too. I'm glad that this was helpful. And I will talk to you guys later. Have a good rest of your night.